Welcome back to another episode of From the Ground Up. My name is Margaret Stouter. I'm a registrar and site archaeologist here at Fort Ticonderoga. And for this episode, we are looking at kettles. Now, kettles come in different sizes and shapes of material, whether it be brass, iron, or copper. And they were used by all the individuals that were here during the military occupation of the fort, so from 1755 to 1781. And that would have included soldiers and their messes, their food messes, using the pots to cook. It would have included the followers of the army who would have been using pots and kettles to be able to do the laundry for the army. And it also would have included officers and their servants. Now, in 1757, in the inventory for the Magasin du Roi, or the King's Storehouse, there's 16 large iron kettles listed. Kettles will also be used by General Geoffrey Amherst and his British troops after the capture of the fort in 1759, when the French, having on their way retreating, decided to blow up the Magasin du Roi. Amherst and those soldiers will then take camp kettles to try and put out the fire. They're also here, the barracks master in 1762 lists around 20 pots on the barracks furniture list, so those would have been used by the individuals during the peacetime garrison of the fort. And we also have kettles and pots being used by the American Army when they're here from 1755 to 1777. In Colonel Francis's regiment, under the direction of Udny Hay, who's the quartermaster general here in 1776, there's one tin man listed. So this individual would then be in charge of making canister shot, for instance, for your ammunition, but also of repairing any of the tin kettles that were available. And all of that tin in the stores were also left here when the American Army retreats in 1777 in July, after General Burgoyne and the British Army come down into the area to capture Fort Ticonderoga. Now, in our collection today, we have a few different examples of types and different makes, different types of material for our kettles. They range from larger sizes to some smaller sizes. Some are very heavy, some are on the lighter side. And we'll start with this amazing copper kettle that we have here. It's very well preserved. We're missing probably around half to a quarter of it. You'll see that there's this iron section that has come out and been exposed because of the copper kettle deteriorating in the ground. It would have been molded or formed, hammered into the shape, and then had this iron ring that's been put through it to help carry it, to give it a little bit more substance. The copper is rolled around it, and then it's had these lugs or ears that have been put onto the sides where you'll then put your bail or your handle. And in this case, there's sometimes different ways that lugs, your little side pieces, your ears, can be attached to kettles. And in this case, these lugs go above and are attached around the top rim of the kettle. So it was a piece of also copper that was folded around the rim and then has been riveted to the size of the kettle, and then a hole has been punched through, so that's where the handle could be put through. And interestingly enough, the flatter sides a lot of the time for these rivets are on the interior, so if you were putting your hands in, no doubt you weren't going to be scraped about. So we have one of our bales that has been left on this. And you can just see this is a pretty substantial size kettle, probably either for cooking. They could have done some wash in this as well, but just amazing that it's been preserved in such a way that we can see the shape of it. Now, this being copper, we also have quite a large number of fragments of iron kettles in the collection as well. We have both the traditional sort of cauldron-esque shape when you think of a kettle, an iron kettle, but we also have some other sizes as well. This one is interesting because it's a little bit more wider and flat-bottomed than the traditional kettle. And whereas our deeper kettles, like this piece for instance, which is that more traditional kettle shape, would have been deeper and then had its handles attached to the side in the molding process. This one has the lugs on it attached on the top instead. And these would have been cast iron, so these are being poured and formed in a mold and would have had those handles then in the mold while it was happening, versus attaching your lugs or your handles later on. Now, our copper kettles and brass kettles for the most part wouldn't have any legs on them. They're flat bottomed, but our iron kettles would have sometimes these little legs on the bottom of them, usually 3, a little tripod, and this would allow them then to be set over coals or fire, directly into the fire, because the iron can withstand that heat, that high heat. You could then be cooking into the fire, whereas a lot of these vessels would have been maybe hanging or close to the fire. With a lot of our iron kettles as well, you can see some of the cast marks. Usually they'll have these lines that go across the body of it. This one has one there, and then this fragment has some lines, the cast lines that go up the body as well. Now, we also have this amazing fragment of tin kettle, and it's two pieces. It forms, or two fragments that form one piece. I'm just being very gentle with it. As you can see here, these would fit together, so this is one whole fragment. And this piece of tin would have been from a tin roll or a tin plate that would have been then hammered out, and there would be a seam on one side. What's interesting about this piece is that there is a seam right here on the exterior side where it looks like it's been folded, and the top, to give it a little bit more reinforcement, similar to having the iron band in our copper kettle here, the tin was rolled over, so there was a little bit of a reinforcement here on the top. And then the top here, the little ear, similar to our copper, being another piece of tin that's been folded over and riveted to the top of the pail here, the top of the kettle, with little rivets, and then the hole put through. And this is just amazing that it's been preserved, because tin is very fragmentary when you pull it out of archaeological context. So the fact that that preserved as such is really amazing. Now, these all would have had a handle to them. So we have our handle or our bail. A lot of times they're iron. So a lot of our fragmentary pieces of handles we have are these iron bails. They have the end hooked over like that, so it would hook right into the ear of your lug of your kettle. And this then you could carry with you, or you could put it over the fire, so it could help you during cooking. Now, we also have this amazing copper pot lid or kettle pot lid, and in a list of stores and equipment that the French are sending over to Canada in 1755 for the regiments, the battalions that are going to be here, which included regiments that then would come here and serve at Fort Ticonderoga, was small copper kettles, pots for officers. So not necessarily needing the same large mess that the soldiers would be getting, which was, depending on the army, the nationality of the army could be anywhere from 6 to 10 men. The officers would be eating on sort of smaller groups. But this copper kettle has been conserved. You can see the two rivets where the handle, this top piece, has been put in, and then it has a little copper ring, again, for being able to either hang it somewhere or pull it off if it was hot. But what's really especially amazing about this is that there is a maker's mark that's very visible on the top of it. So that would have been used in conjunction with the rest of a copper pot or kettle. Now, these are all for cooking. We do have some interesting remnants of other types of kettles, mostly our tea kettle. So this is part of a copper tea kettle. It's just the spout of it that's been left. We have a few spouts. It's sort of crudely made. It's been cut, but it has, again, survived even in an archaeological context without being crushed too much. So tea being incredibly important and part of especially British and American culture, the taking of tea most likely being done more by officers, though during the peacetime garrison there's a chance that the families living more apartment style in the barracks would be able to have more of that routine of taking tea and being able to get some of those supplies from the area or people traveling through, coming from settlers. But officers, soldiers, followers, they wanted tea, they would have to have had a tea kettle with them, or been able to have a teapot if they were boiling water, which they would have done in one of their tin or copper kettles. So this is just a small selection of some of our kettles that we have here, kettle fragments even that we have here in the collections. They're available on the Ticonderoga online collections database if you'd like to see some more photos and learn more about them. Thank you so much for your support and for watching this video. And if you're interested to see what other projects are coming up with the collections department, you can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.